the latest film from iconic action director John Woo, who brought us such Hong Kong classics as The Killer and Hard Boiled and Better Tomorrow 1 and 2 and Bullet in the Head and Once a Thief and on and on and on. Then came to America and did Hard Target and Broken Arrow and Mission Impossible 2 and on and on and on. Is in theaters now for the moment, entitled Silent Night. This is the story of a man whose young son is killed accidentally in a drive-by gang shooting in LA, and he sets out to right a wrong and become a one-man wrecking crew right around Christmas time. Merry Christmas! So I was very excited to see this. I love John Woo. I love classic John Woo. You could probably see where this is going. I love classic John Woo. I came to know him when I got into Hong Kong films in the 90s, and his were films that set the standard to me of what action can and should be. And he came to America, and his style was mostly maintained, but over time, he kept making American films that I ultimately stopped going to see because they just were becoming kind of generic American action films. Now, he's gone back and forth. He's done films in China, and he's done films in America, and this is his latest set in shot in America film. Stars Joel Kinnaman as our hero, Joel Kinnaman. Somebody I didn't know, I had to look it up. He's a Swedish actor who has been in mostly TV, For All Mankind and The Killing and House of Cards, and I guess he was in one of the Suicide Squad movies. Anyway, it is a wordless role for Mr. Kinnaman. This is very unique. I didn't know this going in. Maybe something you should know going in if you're going to watch this is that it is essentially a silent film. Now, there's sound in the film, but there is no on-screen dialogue in this film. You do hear people talking on occasion. You hear voices over police radios or people in the background or something, but the film goes out of its way to have you never see somebody speaking on camera. Now, our main hero, the reason he doesn't speak on camera is that he suffers an injury to his throatal area so that he can't talk. So that's fine. That makes sense. But after a while, you're like, certainly there are scenarios that we are witnessing where somebody might say something in this moment. Anyway, you don't go to a John Woo movie for the dialogue necessarily. And you go to a John Woo movie, if you know John Woo, you expect certain things. You expect really well executed action. You expect a lot of kind of heavy melodrama, sometimes bordering over into the cheese because that's just what he does. That was true of the Hong Kong films. And you always just took it as he's a very heartfelt guy and he puts, moments of heavy drama and sadness and love and so forth into his films amongst all the bullets. And you expect, as I say, some slow motion and probably a bird flying at some point. So what did we get with Silent Night? I went into this cautiously optimistic because, as I said, I haven't watched a lot of the last decade or two of John Woo's films because they just look like big dumb action movies to me, as opposed to the big dumb action movies he made in Hong Kong. And even Hard Target I liked a lot, which is a big dumb action movie, but the style is just so wonderful. For me, I actually kind of dropped off steeply after Hard Target. I went to see Broken Arrow and I was like, oh, this is just kind of a big dumb explosion movie. And I might have checked out, I saw Mission Impossible 2, which was fun at the time, but I didn't really follow what he's done. So I never saw Paycheck. I didn't see some of his more recent stuff. So I went into this saying, cool, I can see a John Woo movie on the big screen in America, which was always the dream back when he was making his classic films. Unless you lived near Chinatown somewhere in a major metropolitan area, you really weren't able to see his classic Chow Yun-fat movies on the big screen in this country. So I went to a matinee. We went to a matinee. Only people in the theater. Weekday matinee, so that kind of makes sense. And I thought it wasn't good. And I went in wanting to like this. Usually I go in with extremely low expectations for everything. And even with this, I really went in with very low expectations based on, the kind of films Woo has made lately, at least the American ones. I haven't seen all of his Hong Kong. Red Cliff, I know, was a big extravaganza that I don't think I ever saw. Or I saw the short version. I think there was a very long or two-part version. I saw the short version. So I went in with low expectations and they were met, unfortunately. So you go to a John Woo movie for the action, really. So how's the action in this movie? It wasn't that interestingly done. It really kind of felt to me like your average straight-to-video action movie. The action, there were some moments that were kind of cool. There was a moment toward the end. The movie basically is like a combination of like Death Wish and The Raid and a couple of other things, which is fine. I love revenge movies. And it just takes forever to get to the action in this film. It's a lot of Joel Kinnaman at home being sad about his son and brooding. And eventually you see him start, training and preparing his plan of what he's going to do. And you're like, okay, here we go. But when he does, it's just so mediocrely. Is that even a word? It is delivered in such a mediocre way, I thought. The action, a couple cool moments, but otherwise it could have been any action movie. It felt really small and cheap. It probably was, and that's okay. All I need is good action in this film, but it took so long to get there. And the melodrama, there's moments in the melodrama where if there were more people in the audience, somebody would have laughed, I'm sure. There's a moment toward the end where he has this vision of his son, and it's done in such a cheesy way. I mean, I expect that from Woo, but wow, it was just, I thought this movie was just not good, unfortunately, which is a shame because, again, with action films, if the action is good, I can overlook just about everything else. And here, it just wasn't interesting. I felt bad for this guy and what he'd suffered, but there's so much of him just brooding and being kind of rude to his wife and people around him that you're like, okay, I get it. I really feel like in the end, this could have been, or maybe some fan will do this could have been a passable short film. Make this 20 minutes. Make this short, but for an hour, 144 minutes, no, not 140, an hour and 44 minutes, it was just, there wasn't enough there to get by. And it took so long to get to the payoff. And when it came, it was just, and beyond that, these are the things that wouldn't bother me unless I wasn't enjoying the movie otherwise. Some people can take multiple bullet hits to the torso and be fine. Some people can take one bullet and they're dead and they're gone. That's something I noticed. At the beginning of the film, you see these two gang vehicles driving down some LA alleyway and they're firing guns at each other, they're like 2 feet away, machine guns, and they just keep driving. And it's just like, this seems a little silly. Somebody should be dead. And then toward the end, somebody takes a few bullet hits, and then a few minutes later, they're like back in the game. And I'm like, really? That was blood I saw through the shirt. It wasn't a vest. It was. How is this? And there was just a lot of little logic things that normally wouldn't bother me. So anyway, in theaters as I record this, but as I record this, I think it's leaving theaters. So this is ultimately, everything I say, ultimately, you're going to find streaming or on physical media. Buyer beware. The Silent Night, I thought was sadly just really not good. What you should watch is the original version of The Killer, the Hard-Boiled, Hard Target, Bullet in the Head, Once a Thief that nobody really talks about. I know he remade that, I think, and it was a TV show that was kind of lame, but the original Chow Yun-Fat Once a Thief is a lot of fun. But Silent Night, I would allow to remain silent.